Hello everyone, I'm Guido Grinbaum and welcome to the second module of this course on microcredentials. In the first class, we looked at where this movement comes from and how it changed the way we understand learning. Today, we're going to go much deeper. We will talk about the international modes and models that exist, the technical standards, and why interoperability is the new language of global education. Think of it this way. If every university issued credentials without a common structure, it would be as if every country invented its own alphabet. We wouldn't be able to understand each other or recognize one another's achievements. That's why standards are so important. They are a shared language of learning. They allow a micro-credential issued, for example, in Chile, to be understood and validated in Finland. In the words of the OECD, without open standards, the system fragments into thousands of micro-islands, isolated and unconnected. Let's start with the broadest framework, UNESCO. In 2023, UNESCO published its guidelines and micro-credentials in higher education. There it presents three central ideas. First, that micro-credentials should recognize verifiable learning, whether formal, non-formal, or informal. Second, they should promote inclusion and accessibility, not only for university students, but also for adults, migrants, and workers. And third, they must ensure global interoperability, so that a credential issued in any country can be read and verified using the same standards. UNESCO also promotes the idea of individual learning accounts, a kind of educational wallet, where each person stores all the micro-credentials they obtain throughout their life. Let's move on to the European Commission now, which went beyond theory and created a true trust infrastructure. Three pillars support the European model. First, ELM, which is the European Learning Model, a common language for describing learning outcomes. Second, EDSL, which is the European Digital Credential for Learning, the technology that allows credentials to be issued and verified throughout the European Union. And third, the European approach to microcredentials, which is the policy framework that defines the minimum rules for all universities to work under the same standard. In summary, the European goal is for each microcredential to be portable, verifiable, and automatically recognized in all 27 EU countries. This will be the foundation of the future European Skills Wallet, the digital educational wallet that the European Union plans to launch before 2027. From the world of technology, the most influential standard is Open Badges, developed by TEC, formerly known as IMS Global. It was created in 2011 and today has reached version 3.0, which is fully compatible with ELM and European standards. What makes it important? Each credential includes verifiable metadata: who issued it, what it certifies, when, under what criteria, and with what evidence. This means that anyone, anywhere in the world can verify online whether the credential is authentic or not, as one text says. Microcredentials don't need blockchain to be secure. They need interoperability to be trustworthy. But beyond the technical side, there is something that all organizations understand. Without quality assurance, microcredentials lose all legitimacy. How does an employer know that a credential has academic value? That's where organizations like EQUAR and EQUAR come in, which are adapting the ESG, the European Quality Standards, to include microcredentials within the formal system. The OECD proposes three basic principles: transparency in criteria, documented evaluation, and recognition within national qualification frameworks. In 2024, more than 600 European institutions had already integrated microcredentials into their quality assurance systems. Now let's see how this translates into national policies. Australia, for example, launched its National Microcredential Framework in 2020, which defines the levels, validations, and equivalent academic credits. In 2021, Ireland integrated microcredentials into its national framework, aligning them with employers and quality agencies. Spain launched its University Microcredentials Plan in 2023, co-financed by the European Union and based on ECTS credits. Canada is building a province-based model focused on lifelong learning. And the Netherlands, with SURF and EQUAR, has the most advanced ecosystem in the world: interoperable, verifiable, and fully GDPR compliant, which is very important. If we compare these approaches, we see something very interesting. They are not in competition with each other, but rather different layers of the same global system. Organization, main focus, scope, UNESCO, inclusion and lifelong learning, global, the European Commission, standardization and regional mobility, and the OECD, transparency and multinational employability, one tech, technical and global interoperability. These four layers, policy, pedagogy, technical, and social, are aligning to create a new universal language of learning. Even so, there are significant challenges. First, harmonization between national frameworks. Many countries are making rapid progress, but there are still no formal equivalencies between systems. Second, the risk of credential inflation. Too many uncontrolled credentials can erode trust. Third, the lack of evidence on the real impact on employability. We need more data, more research, and more follow-up. And fourth, technological inequality. Universities in developing countries do not always have access to the same digital infrastructure platforms. The European Commission summed it up in a very powerful phrase: trust is not built with quantity, but with quality. And that quality requires institutional agreements, audits, and responsible governance. We are entering a stage where micro-credentials are no longer just a technological experiment, but are becoming a structural educational policy. So what do we learn from all these models? That it's not just about issuing badges or digital diplomas, it's about creating a common grammar of learning based on verifiable outcomes, transparency, and mutual recognition. The ultimate goal is not to have thousands of scattered credentials, but to build a reliable system where every learning experience has value and can be connected with others. And as I said, quoting Anthony Camilleri in the 2025 masterclass, micro-credentials are not the future of education, but rather the present form of educational recognition. In summary, international models and standards are the backbone of the entire micro-credential ecosystem. Without them, each institution would speak its own educational language, and no one would be able to understand each other. With them, we create a shared learning environment that brings together academia, government, and the workforce. In the next module, we will analyze how these policies are applied within universities, what structures are needed, how credentials are governed, and what roles are played by teachers, academic departments, and quality agencies. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next session, Academic Policies and Institutional Governance.